A fortress, with its walls in ruins, ruled inside by helplessness and fear. Enemies surrounded it from all sides, and Emperor Humayun bore the wounds of defeat, living the harsh life of exile. This was Sindh's Umerkot, where Humayun and his queen, Hamida Banu Begum, waited for a new hope. And on that very night, destiny brought into the world a child who would one day change the course of history. That child was Jalal-ud-din Muhammad Akbar. On October 15th, 1542, in the fortress of Umerkot, a child was born, Jalal-ud-din Muhammad Akbar. At that time, the Mughal Empire was in complete turmoil. His father, Emperor Humayun, had been defeated by Shah Suri and was enduring a life of exile. The empire was lost, the royal court scattered, and the family lived in constant fear and uncertainty. Akbar's birth was not in a grand palace, but in the harsh realities of exile and poverty. His childhood, too, was devoid of peace and luxury. Along with his mother, Hamida Banu Begum, he would sometimes find refuge in a fortified castle, and at other times be hidden away in villages far from the eyes of enemies. Danger lurked everywhere, and life always seemed on the edge. Akbar did not receive much formal education. Circumstances taught him more than books ever could. He grew up among soldiers, watching their discipline, their battle preparations, and their strategies. From an early age, he observed everything with sharp eyes. He took keen interest in physical training and martial exercises, and even before reaching youth, signs of courage and strength were already clear in his character. These early hardships proved to be a difficult yet defining phase of Akbar's life. Constant migration and fear instilled in impatience and endurance. Poverty and exile gave him simplicity and determination, and thus, the homeless prince born in the fortress of Umerkot was preparing, step by step, to one day ascend the throne of Hindustan. Before we continue in this video, a small request. Don't forget to like this video, because it gives us motivation. And remember to subscribe to this channel, because here you will continue to find such historical stories. After his crushing defeat at the hands of Shah Suri, Emperor Humayun spent years in exile. He sought refuge at the court of Persia, wandered along the frontiers like a broken king without a throne. It was in these difficult years that his young son, Akbar, grew up. The Mughal dynasty was in ruins, fighting desperately for survival. But destiny soon took a dramatic turn. In 1555, with the support of the Safavid king, Shah Tahmasp of Persia, Humayun reclaimed his lost empire. Delhi once again came under the Mughal banner. Akbar, still in his early teens, watched his father return from exile to sit once more upon the throne. That sight of a fallen king restored to power left an everlasting mark on his young mind. Yet this joy was short-lived. In January 1556, only months after regaining Delhi, tragedy struck again. Humayun fell from the steep steps of his library and died. The throne was empty once more. Enemies surrounded the empire, and the Mughal dynasty stood at a perilous crossroad. Onto that fragile throne now stepped a boy of only 13, Akbar. Childhood had barely left him, yet the weight of an empire pressed upon his shoulders. But he was not alone. At his side stood a man of iron loyalty and vast experience, Bairam Khan. He became Akbar's guardian, his teacher, and the true commander of the Mughal armies. Still, the greatest test was yet to come. The moment news of Humayun's death spread, the Afghan warlord Haymu seized Delhi and declared himself ruler. The fate of the Mughal Empire will be decided on the battlefield. On November 5th, 1556, the plains of Panipat once again became the stage of history. The battle later known as the Second Battle of Panipat. On one side stood Haymu's massive army, equipped with war elephants and seasoned fighters. On the other, the Mughal forces, led in name by young Akbar, but in reality commanded by the strategic mind of Bairam Khan. At first, Haymu's army struck with immense force, pressing the Mughals to their limits. But then destiny intervened. A single arrow pierced Haymu's eye, and the Afghan leader collapsed. Chaos swept through his ranks. The Mughals seized the moment, launched a decisive counterattack, and shattered Haymu's forces. This victory was more than just a battle won. It was the salvation of the Mughal Empire. Though Bayram Khan's strategy had secured the day, it was Akbar who now stood as the rightful ruler. With Delhi and Agra firmly back in Mughal hands, the boy who had once been a refugee was now recognized as the Emperor of Hindustan. After the victory at Panipat, Delhi and Agra fell under Mughal control. Yet much of the empire remained unstable. Rajput chiefs and Afghan warlords were poised for rebellion across the land. In this critical moment, Bayram Khan acted in Akbar's name with firm and aggressive policies. He crushed uprisings, safeguarded the treasury, and reorganized the army. Akbar, still a young boy, left most military campaigns and affairs of state in Bayram Khan's hands. Under his guardianship, the emperor was not only protected, but also introduced to the fundamentals of warfare and governance. Yet, as time passed, Akbar realized that if he was truly to be emperor, the full authority of power had to rest with him alone. After 4 years of guardianship, in 1560, Akbar decided the time had come to stand on his own. He dismissed Bayram Khan from court and assumed direct control of his rule. This was the first bold step of his youth, a sign that Akbar was no longer a puppet king. After Bayram Khan's dismissal, in 1561, Akbar faced the first great test of his reign. The Afghan noble Baz Bahadur of Malwa rose in defiance of Mughal authority. Under the command of Bayram Khan, the Mughal army marched on Malwa. After fierce resistance, Baz Bahadur was defeated, and Malwa was annexed into the empire. This victory became a milestone for Akbar, as it secured Mughal control over central India and sent a clear warning to other chiefs that the throne of Delhi was now held by a strong ruler. After the conquest of Malwa, Bayram Khan resolved to set out for the Hajj. He intended to depart from Mecca through Gujarat, but fate intervened. On the way, he was attacked by the Afghan noble Mubarak Khan Lohani and killed. For Akbar, this tragedy carried a lasting lesson. The game of power was harsh and merciless. After Bayram Khan's death, Akbar had to rule on his own. Afghan nobles in Jaunpur and nearby regions rebelled, but he crushed each uprising decisively, showing that the throne of Delhi was now held by a strong and determined ruler. In 1562, he turned toward Rajputana. The Rajput states had long resisted Mughal authority. Akbar employed both strength and diplomacy. He forged an alliance with Raja Barmal of Amber and his nephew, Man Singh. As a symbol of this alliance, Akbar married Raja Barmal's daughter, Hirakanwari, later known as Mariam-uz-Zamani. This marriage not only brought the Mughals closer to the Rajputs, but also reflected Akbar's political vision, that empires could be built not only by the sword, but through unity. Yet relations with the Rajputs were not always smooth. The ruler of Mewar, Rana Uday Singh, refused to accept Mughal supremacy. In 1567, Akbar laid siege to Chittagong, the proud fortress that stood as a symbol of Rajput honor and resistance. After months of fierce fighting, the Mughals captured the fort. This became one of Akbar's greatest early victories, a triumph that sent a clear message across India. The throne of Delhi was now held by a powerful and unyielding ruler. By 1568, in just 12 years of rule, Akbar had transformed the empire from exile and weakness into an organized and formidable state. By stepping out of Bayram Khan's shadow, crushing rebellions, and forging alliances with the Rajputs, he laid the strong foundations upon which a vast and enduring empire would rise. After 1562, once Akbar had stabilized his empire, he turned his attention to expansion. He understood that the survival of the empire depended not only on internal stability, but also on control over distant territories. Step by step, he prepared his army, laying the foundation for a vast and powerful empire. First, his eyes fell on Gujarat, a region of great commercial importance and key to the western part of the Mughal realm. The Sultan of Gujarat refused to accept Akbar's authority. In March 1572, Akbar sent his forces. Months of sieges and careful maneuvers followed. By August 1573, Gujarat was fully incorporated into the Mughal Empire. This victory not only stabilized the western region, but also brought major ports and treasures under Akbar's control. With Gujarat secured, Akbar turned northeast toward Bengal. Fertile and economically vital, Bengal was under rulers who resisted Mughal authority. In March 1574, Akbar dispatched his army. Several forts were captured, and the campaign stretched over 2 years. By 1576, most of Bengal had been brought under Mughal rule. This conquest secured northeastern borders, protected trade routes, and showcased the skill and strategy of Akbar's forces. At the same time, in 1574, Akbar set his sights on the Deccan. The southern rulers had repeatedly challenged Mughal expansion. In August 1574, Akbar sent troops. Key forts were seized, and local rulers were forced into submission. The campaign lasted about a year, strengthening Mughal influence in the south. Here, Akbar demonstrated that he was not only a powerful ruler, but also a master strategist and diplomat. Next came the challenge of the northern frontiers, particularly Kabul and surrounding areas, where Afghan tribes and local chiefs frequently revolted. In February 1578, Akbar sent his army. After months of operations, full control was established. This step secured the northern borders and protected vital trade and military routes. Through these campaigns, Akbar's empire grew not only in size but in strength and organization. After every conquest, he ensured administrative stability, revenue collection, and military order, creating long-lasting stability. He proved that an empire's growth depended not only on the sword but also on strategy, diplomacy, and alliances. Between 1562 and 1578, Akbar expanded his empire north-south, east and west. The conquest of Gujarat, Bengal, the Deccan, and Kabul brought land, wealth, and firm authority. With each victory, Akbar emerged as a decisive and visionary ruler, a strong and enduring emperor whose power left a lasting mark on history. After years of conquest, Akbar realized true power did not lie only in the sword. To secure his empire, he needed a system of order, justice, and stability. The time had come for reforms. Akbar introduced the Mansabdari system. Every officer and soldier was ranked, paid, and assigned duties. It brought discipline to the army and reduced the chances of rebellion. The empire depended on its farmers. Akbar reformed taxation by linking revenue to actual crop production. This made taxes fairer, farmers happier, and the treasury stronger. Akbar ruled over Hindus, Muslims, Jains, and Christians alike. To unite them, he introduced Sulh-i-Kul, universal peace, promising respect and tolerance for all faiths. At Fatehpur Sikri, Akbar built the Badat Khana. Here, scholars and philosophers debated religion and philosophy. Akbar listened, questioned, and searched for wisdom. From these debates emerged the Din-i-Ilahi. It was not a new religion, but a moral path, teaching honesty, justice, and compassion. Its purpose was unity, not division. Through these reforms, Akbar was no longer just a conqueror. He became a just ruler, remembered for building an empire on tolerance, fairness, and vision. Akbar was not only a conqueror, but also a patron of knowledge and culture. His court became a shining center of learning in the history of the subcontinent. Here, alongside the power of the sword, the voice of wisdom and creativity was heard. The most celebrated figures of his court were the Navratnas, the 9 jewels, Abu al-Fazl, Akbar's closest advisor and the author of the Akbarnama, who preserved the emperor's legacy in history, Faizi, his brother, a brilliant poet and scholar who enriched the court's intellectual life. Birbal, love for his wit and wisdom, whose tales of humor and cleverness are remembered even today. Akbar's passion for the arts flourished in painting. Mughal miniature art reached new heights, blending Persian elegance with Indian vibrancy, creating images that seemed to bring history to life. Architecture too bore Akbar's stamp. His greatest legacy was Fatehpur Sikri, which briefly served as his capital. Within its walls rose the Diwan-i-Am, Diwan-i-Khas, and the majestic Buland Darwaza. The city reflected a harmony of Hindu, Persian, and Central Asian styles. Thus, Akbar's court was not merely a seat of power. It became a symbol of knowledge, art, and tolerance, a legacy that left a lasting mark on the culture of the subcontinent. In the final years of Akbar's life, his empire stretched from northern India to Bengal, Gujarat, the Deccan, and even Kabul. But with age came new challenges: the question of succession, family conflicts, and the strain of his last campaigns. Akbar had already named his son Selim as his heir, the man who would later be known as Jahangir. But the choice was not an easy one. Selim's rebellions and his restless nature troubled Akbar deeply. At times, father and son stood opposed. Yet, in the end, Akbar accepted reality and confirmed Selim as a successor. In those later years, Akbar still oversaw a few campaigns. In the Deccan, his armies pushed south to secure Mughal power. But these wars dragged on, filled with obstacles and delays. Akbar's focus was no longer the battlefield. It shifted to governance and to holding his vast empire together. Then, in October 1605, illness struck him. From the palaces of Fatehpur Sikri and Agra, Akbar watched his strength fade away. On the 27th of October, 1605, the great emperor passed from this world. He was laid to rest at Sikandra near Agra, in a grand mausoleum that still stands as a monument to his greatness. After his death, Selim ascended the throne as Jahangir, but Akbar's shadow remained. His influence continued to shape India for centuries. Akbar was not just a conqueror, not just a king. He was a ruler who joined power with tolerance and strength with vision. His principle of Sulh-i-Kul, peace with all, set a timeless example of religious harmony. He changed the political map of India, turning a divided land into one mighty empire. He built courts that became centers of art and knowledge. He strengthened the economy and laid the foundations of stable rule. Akbar's true legacy was not only in stone palaces or conquered lands, but in the idea that diverse peoples, cultures, and faiths could live together under one crown. That is why history remembers him as Akbar the Great, a ruler, a thinker, a legend whose name still lives on, because legends never die. If you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like the video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Saga the Famous for more epic stories of the past.